is trying to sell his business to GFL or Harder's or Modern Disposal or perhaps others. I was told that this is a big secret. I asked, none of these companies will use the Vernon County landfill. If Big Hook is successful in selling out, where will you be? Either you know about it and are inappropriately keeping it under wraps, or you have just learned it now. Either way, I request that you put this issue on the agenda for discussion at your next meeting. Here's another rub. The feasibility study makes only a one sentence bare mention of, quote, a transfer station, end quote, and fails to name it or analyze it as an alternative that exists within the service area as required by the DNR. Not only that, all submissions, both historical and current, for feasibility and plan of operations state that Vernon County landfill is exclusively for waste generated in the county and that any out-of-county waste is an insignificant amount. Based on the records I have reviewed from the county and from Southwest Sanitation, now GFL, that is not true. I estimate that since 2019, the amount of out-of-county waste has been 30 to 35% of the tonnage. And another rub. Up through the 2024 annual license application submitted in 2023, the service area reported was only Vernon County. However, the 2025 annual license application submitted in 2024 states a service area of 3 additional counties: La Crosse, which has a resource recovery landfill and an enforceable flow control ordinance; Monroe, which has a landfill with an approved planned expansion; and Crawford, which has a transfer station to Dubuque. There is no modification to the feasibility report nor the plan of operation currently in effect. Changing a service area requires a plan modification, according to Bridget Kelly at the DNR. And here's the final rub for today. Last month, a resident spoke about banning food waste from landfills. He was familiar with King County in Washington State's landfill food waste ban. Since then, I received information from the regional EPA office that Vermont, California, Connecticut, Massachusetts, and Rhode Island all have statewide bans. Furthermore, the Wisconsin DNR has set a goal of reducing food waste going to landfills by 50% by 2030. The responsible waste management policy to work towards in Vernon County would be to ban food waste from the landfill, which would considerably reduce volume, toxic gas emissions, and toxic leachate. But that would reduce your tonnage. So again, where would you be? Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry.
No, that's good.
Would anyone else like to speak? Anna Jo, did you want to speak, audience to visitors, at this time? You're on mute right now. And she wants to speak, but she's yeah. There we go. All right. You're on now. Yes, thank you.
Sorry, it took me a scramble to get unmuted.
Okay.
I'm only contacting you this morning because in April you had a bid for proposals put out for the piece of land adjacent to my property. I put in a proposal and have been in communication more than once requesting that this topic come back onto the agenda. It's not in the agenda again, so I'm here to say, please put it on the agenda so I have a chance to reopen this conversation with you, or give me another alternative as to how to continue the conversation. I realize that the present state of things is that you opened bids, you received one bid from me, and you did not consider it adequate and have closed the topic. I'm interested in further conversation on this topic. And I don't know how to get onto the committee, because communication directly with your chair has not produced an agenda item. This would be the second month since that time where that hasn't happened.
Okay, is that something you can put
To the chair.
Okay. I know, it was discussed, and the amount we decided was too low. So if you're offering to, possibly come with another bid, that would be something we could put on the agenda at that time. But it is, the offer was closed.
I'm interested in a counteroffer from the county, because I don't think the appraisal is an appropriate number, and I did think that my bid was appropriate for reasons I'd be happy to explain further. And our bid was really related to problem solving a situation, that many of you know the backstory of, related to our relationship to overland access. And so less than probably only 2 or 3 acres of that 10-acre parcel would more than adequately help us solve the problem that installing a new road and changing our access. So I don't have a need for all 10 acres of that, and I don't have a need for 10 acres at that price. So there's some layers of conversation that I was not able to have in a public meeting, and I don't know you only asked for bids and I gave you a bid, but there was never any discussion, and I don't know how the discussion part officially should happen or can happen. So that's the part that's why I'm here and an open at the audience for visitor time right now, because I'm interested in that conversation, but I don't know how it is supposed to begin. And I guess if you want me to just submit another bid, I can do that.
We'll relay it to the chair.
Yeah, we'll relay it to Lauren, the chair, and we can get back to you on that. I know that you've discussed with him, but
Is he not present today?
He's not present today, no.
Okay. Well, all right. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else? Audience to visitors. All right, with that, we'll move on to zoning and sanitation, income and expense report.
All right. As you can see, it's been a busy year, a lot of sanitary permits, which is why I'll try to cruise through this a little bit. We're down a little, Angela's on vacation, so Dave's off today, so got a couple inspections to go on. So construction season's obviously underway. Installs are starting to heat up, so which is where I'll be soon. But we got 58 sanitary permits in already this year. Last year we had 43, so we're seeing building way up, and it's evident by our land use permits too.
It's amazing with the interest rates, the way they are.
Yeah, it's nothing. It is not slowing down at all, and all one bit. So properties are moving. We're getting a lot of. I think I probably should create another category on here, because we started doing the navigability determinations for the potential shoreline and the protection zones, the ones that the DNR never determined. So we're going out on those quite a bit. I think we have 5 of those in already, and those are mainly properties that were for sale, and the realtors reached out to us and wanted that cleared, because apparently that's a shoreline protection zone is a spooky thing for buyers. So they think they can't do anything in it, but it's a water quality based rule, not a floodplain, which is, stay away in a sense,
Sure.
you don't want to affect that flood carrying capacity or storage. So it's a little bit different. But like I said, so it's reflective on our income being up for the year at 54,130, where last year we're at 47,444 at this point. So income's way up. Expenses, the department salary's up because we had 3 pay periods this year. That's why that looks a little out of whack. So, or this month we had 3 pay periods. Brings that up a little compared to last year. So yeah, I don't know if you guys got any questions about it, how anything lies in there.
If you
Obviously.
have any questions.
Obviously, that state sanitary fee, that's linked to how many permits
Sure.
so it's directly linked there. So, that we're running a little high on right now, but that's, like I said, directly linked to the number of permits we issue.
Right? Sure. Administrator's report.
Yeah. So, like I said, we've been so busy, so we haven't been working on the cab as much, the FEMA community assistance visit. So we had 2 cases that got taken care of. We haven't been super active on it just because one was one that's been out there a while, and, we've been working towards a solution for quite a while. I think we found a creative solution, and the DNR's on board with it. Truck updates still hasn't hit the production floor. I think the municipal ones are the last ones that they do. They do all their other orders first. So
I don't know. My husband ordered a truck in January and hasn't heard
So
anything.
he's jumping
got
ahead
a
of
VIN
us.
number, but got a VIN number, but that's it.
sure.
So
Yeah, it's a waiting game. Citation Authority, we had been working with Nikki and the clerk of courts. I think we have a process figured out. And that's all going to be kind of based upon normal workload and timing of the month. And we got it kind of in the email string out with Sheila and Nikki, and we'll figure that, tone that, or dial that in and get that figured out. 2 interns started in May, and they're collecting data on the culvert inventory and conditions. We got them trained on some of the office work, scanning, deposits, entering stuff in our tracking software. And they've been trying to finish up the BRIC grant repetitive damage logging. And they're spatially putting that on a GIS map so we can see repetitive damage. I think there's 250 of those left to do. We started, there was around 500, so they got about half of them done. We're hoping to finish that up and close that out for the year, which would be great to close that out on the grant, which their time working on that will be reimbursed through that grant. Campgrounds, we talked about that last month. I had an email out to the DNR with language, kind of looping our emergency management director in, having him sign off on an evacuation plan, and an approved alarm system. She said she was okay with that, but she would want to sign off on the evacuation plans. And I kind of have Nikki looped in on this. And I sent her, the DNR floodplain coordinator just got back to me last week on this. Forward that on to Nikki to look at, see if she's comfortable with everything, and legally we'd be on the up and up there. So we may bring something back next month on that.
Okay.
I'm hoping to. Comp planning committee, we have the existing conditions report out for public comment right now. And we will be finishing up our objectives, finalizing our objectives on that tomorrow. So we're also going to finalize locations for our outreach. So we kind of have a couple of those in mind. So that's a few things we'll be discussing tomorrow. For the month of May, we had 6 plumbing violations. We resolved 1 of them. So that's 3 resolved for the year. That's pretty much all I got.
Anybody have any questions? Okay, thank you, Matt. On the highway.
We've got 1 bridge aid for $10,710 for town of Sterling for a large culvert replacement. We cost share on.
Motion to approve by Paul. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Sandy. All those in favor, aye.
All right.
Opposed, same signs. Motion carries. Call-in incentive.
Did they get that in their packet? What it is, you know, with the new work rules, basically you don't hours. Let me start over. With the new federal statutes, vacation, PTO, sick leave, that sort of thing aren't counted as hours worked, which is fine. We'll play within the rules. With the highway department, our employees are mandated by me, I guess, to come in and work call in, you know, for emergencies, winter maintenance, storms, trees, damage, all the above. And if they took a day off before then, technically they wouldn't get overtime for that. So the way creating this policy would basically mean that they would get paid for call in for emergencies at time and a half at overtime, which would be separate from the county as a whole policy. But I mean, we don't have scheduled shifts. We don't have this. We don't have that. It's, you know, we get called in the middle of the night, come to work. So to incentivize that, to keep people answering their phones and get our roads maintained in a timely fashion, I think this would be a necessary to pay our employees.
Didn't we pass in the winter time? You know, they give an extra pay.
We changed all that, you know, with the new pay scale and the way, with the wage study and stuff. So everybody gets paid. That was just for Highway 14 routes. That went away with the new wage study. We put everybody in the spots they need to be. This year it's just for call out. So when they get called out for a storm, whether it be a tree, whatever, they'd get reimbursed in time and a half.
So this is kind of where the sheriff's office is at.
Yeah,
right?
same thing, different wording for us.
Here, I'll just.
So all you're doing is trumping the policy that says that you get it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The PTO part.
I would have printed it, but I don't have a card, so I can't make my printer work.
We'll be taking a similar policy from the sheriff's department to general government. So the plan is to take this policy and the sheriff's department policy to general government in July. As you know, the board, we recently approved the policy where pay time off does not count for overtime purposes. And so we had some concerns raised from the sheriff's department and from highway as to how that would work if we have, you know, dispatch shifts that need to be filled or they get called out for a snow emergency, that we may have some real issues getting people to come in if there's basically no incentive for them to do so. So that's the purpose of creating these department-specific policies.
Do you see issues?
No, I actually, I wrote it, so if you have any issues or concerns, let me know.
Okay.
But I worked with Bill and I also worked with Sheriff to make something that worked best for their department. So we don't have any issues with retention because there has been a little bit of an uproar of concern of, so now if I take a vacation day and then we have an emergent situation, flooding, trees down, any possible issue that we can't prevent, they would then not be compensated at time and a half for those hours because of the vacation or holiday that would impact them.
So I guess in the winter, if you know there's a big storm coming, because I know you did just hours, is that going to be considered called in then?
No. Because we do night shifts and that stuff, and they understand they're still working. They can take it off as comp time, you know, if they work till 4 a.m, all night, midnight.
So this is the oddity, short notice.
This is we got a tree down at 1 o'clock, go hit it.
True emergent, just to make sure they're compensated accordingly and to prove that, to show them that we appreciate what they're doing. They're taking time away to come in and deal with this emergent situation.
And their PTO that they would have requested off already, how far in advance is that approved?
We approve it daily unless it's extended, then it's a week in advance. And everybody knows, and that's my point, that, you know, you're going to the Dells for the weekend, I know you're gone, so I don't call you.
Right.
But if you going out for supper with your wife that night and I call you, I expect you to come. You know, because it's an unplanned emergency and you know,
Right.
you were off. It
Well,
was
that's the
midnight.
same wording with the sheriff's office. That's where I'm going with it. It's the unplanned,
Right.
not,
And I think both policies do state, emergency is determined by their supervisor.
Right.
So you don't specifically have a certain person on call every week that would, okay, it would
I
just,
call by sections, by location. You know, if a tree's down in Coon Valley and I know so-and-so lives in Coon Valley, I call him. You know, even though it may not be his section, but he's there in 5 minutes versus whose section it is, might be there in 45 minutes. If it's a catastrophe or something. So,
and if they're not home or around, you just call the next person.
yeah, you basically create a circle and start calling out. And this way, I mean, and I'm not saying they wouldn't, but this way I'm assuring that they'll answer the phone rather than going, you know, we'll see if he can get somebody else, you know, and I'm not saying they do it on purpose, but 99% of the time they all call me back eventually.
Right.
You know, 10, 15, 20 minutes later, they'll call back. Yeah, I see I missed your call.
Yeah.
This way they'll say, yeah, because they know they're going to get overtime to go out and do it.
There's definitely a concern among your staff about
Yeah.
having something like this in place. Trisha and I were over there a couple of weeks ago to meet with the staff on the wage study. They didn't really care about the wage study, to be honest. They cared about this. And so, you know, we did have some discussions there to hear what their concern changed.
The flip side to this would be to offer it on call. And that would be more financially impactful to
Right.
go that direction.
Right.
So this makes a lot more sense.
So other counties do that where they'll put a select group on call.
That's what I was wondering.
You're on call this weekend. You're guaranteed, whether you get called or not, this, you know, $50 a day or a weekend or
Yeah.
whatever, because you're expected to answer your phone. And that might go 6 months and never get a phone call.
They're still getting that compensation. So this is only compensated if they come in.
and your policy addresses that they're supposed to answer the phone.
They're all over.
Okay. Well, I just,
Finish my beer.
All right, ready. Let's go. So,
Last year, we brought forward a work safety policy, and it's a very detailed policy that involves basically everything in this department. And it was presented to all staff, and they signed off on acknowledgement of receiving.
why you always get the poster child that doesn't answer the phone no matter what it is and what you.
and Tricia and we've got a policy in that. I mean, you got so many not phone answering, you know, and I don't care if they say, well, I don't want you to use my cell phone. Fine. I'll call your home phone, wait to wipe the kids up. But you don't do that, you know, 3-4 times. There's a disciplinary action that progresses up to leading to potential termination.
Or I know it's sure, so it was what's considered a reasonable time to reply. You know, that gets to be an issue too, because you can't call back 12 hours later, because
Right.
what good is that?
I know in other counties, we didn't take that quite a hard line, but you got 30 minutes or you get wrote up. You know, now they even have reporting time, where from the time you answer the phone, you got X number of, 20 or 30 minutes to get to the shop.
Right.
And be reported, or it's, right.
I didn't used to go there until you.
Right. We don't have an issue with it at this point. So, this would be a step to alleviate where we don't have an issue, or an issue does develop.
Well, I definitely think they should be compensated for
Yeah,
something.
I mean, it's an emergency situation and I want them on their A game and I want them, at 3:30 in the middle of December when they're talking snow, I want them to go home and eat supper and watch TV, not say, well, let's stop at whatever nightclub on the way, because they know they're going to get called out more than likely. And if they know they're getting paid overtime, they won't drink beer or take off and go somewhere. They'll stay home and wait by the phone.
Yeah, as an example, Sunday, we were headed to Guttenberg, Iowa. We were going to go to a winery down there just for something to do. Got 3 miles from Guttenberg. Huge tree across the road. And there was no other way to get around. So we just headed home. But a pickup tried to jump. But
Well, that doesn't end well, but,
Yeah. But, that's the case where got to get somebody to get that tree out of the way because there were cars coming. So
what do we want to do on this today?
So to recommend approval to.
Motion by Paul, second by Charlie. All those in favor on? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay,
Commissioners report.
total vouchers for May, $329,642.68. Nothing out of the norm. We got a list of the vouchers there, or the voucher sheet, if you want to look at them. A couple of big ones in there. They were for paint, and beads for road painting. Other than that, all pretty much standard. We figured out finally, working with Trish and Cassie, that we have 0 applicants again, for our positions. Can't get nobody to apply that doesn't not have a CDL. So to alleviate that, what we're going to do is we'll bring people in to interview them with non-CDLs. If they're a good qualified candidate other than their CDL, we have a local school that I can send them to, that the county basically will front the money, or the highway will, give them their training. In that, we'll have them sign a contract that they have to work for us for 3 years. And the way that I'll get reimbursed for that is we have a pay scale in the wage study that we did in anticipation for this, because it was COVID when we did the first wage study. We have a highway worker, and if you have a CDL, you're a section worker. And what it amounts to is $2.13 an hour. So when that employee gets hired, they'll have that understanding that we'll hire them at this lower rate. They'll go to their school, they'll get their CDL, they'll sign their contracts, so on and so forth. When they get their CDL and they pass their probationary period, then they'll get their step up to a section leader. And in that time, I'll be utilizing that employee at the lower rate. So technically, they'll be paying for their own school. So I won't have any, I'll pay the upfront money so I can get people to come and apply. So we've had a number of people over the years, not saying the employees we hired weren't good employees, but over the years that I know were go-getter, get it type of employees that didn't have a CDL. And, back when it first started with this mandatory school, it was over $6,000. Well, if you're going to spend $6,000 to get your CDL, you're going to go drive a quick trip at $100,000 a year. You're not going to come and work the highway for 23. So, but anyway, we got that figured out, and that's, I'll proceed with that.
What's the penalty if they don't stay the 3 years?
Yeah, pay it back.
Okay.
We'll get reimbursed for the schooling.
That'll be in writing, part of it.
Can you remind me, did we set a time period by which they have to obtain it? A year? Okay, thank you.
We talked about salt shed last time. Doing a preliminary overview of the minor fixes we have for our salt sheds. It's going to be around $11,000 plus labor. It's a no-brainer or no choice. We have to do it to be compliant. We do have a bigger repair that I'm getting an estimate now on our big salt shed. But that'll be substantially more. But I'll bring that to committee if we decide if we're going to just go ahead and re-roof the whole thing, be done, which would be let for bids and all the above, because we don't know if we can, if it's worth fixing or if we just re-roof it and be done with it. The Protect grant that you approved for me to solicit for help contractor engineers, I did that. There's a timestamp on the program. Technically, we can't do nothing until August. So that's been put on hold until August when they release it officially. Then we can do that. Our excavator finally got done. We got our boom fixed. That's back out on the road. And we finally got our LRIP money that had been waiting for 3 years. So that should be en route. So other than that, I'm good to go.
Any questions? Warrant for Bill? All right.
Now you're literally good to go.
I'm good to go. I'm going to go Bill. Hey, folks, have a good day.
Yeah.
Yeah. So nothing better than feeling green.
All right, so my department update.
So at May's meeting on my volume report, first page you guys should be looking at, it showed a year-to-date tonnage of 4,212.02 ton. That number was incorrect. That was actually the year-to-date through April of 2023. So the correct tonnage for that year-to-date for April at the May meeting was 3,294.42 ton. But the percentage that was listed, the 33% of what tonnage was budgeted, was correct on that report. Moving on to the report you're looking at now, I just want to get that corrected. So May volume, we were down 5% comparing this May to last May, down 20% so far year to date. The year to date tonnage so far is 4,656.97 ton. That's 47% of the tonnage that I had budgeted. Recycling fee items were down 1% for the month and up 12% year to date. Sale of recyclable volumes is up 14% and down 2% year to date. Leachate volumes are down 17% compared to May of last year and down 28% so far year to date.
Can I ask you about that? Why do you think that is? Like, I feel like we've had so much more rain this year.
Same thing.
Last year, and I looked at it too, because I was kind of in disbelief after you mentioned, which I'll get into the fuel side of things too, but I was kind of in disbelief also. But last year we had a lot of really wet, heavy snowfall. It would be a big, heavy snow, then it would melt, and then we would get a rain, and then we would get a big, heavy snow, and all that as it melts kind of, if it's up in the landfill, it'll percolate down. So that's the only thing I can attribute it to, is that we had a lot of really wet, heavy, sloppy, messy snow last spring, really early, and it kind of carried through March and I think into the beginning of April. And then we had like a dry bone summer. So I was pretty surprised too, considering it keeps raining. We're hauling right now 3 to 5 loads a day just to keep it circulating out of there. So it does, with all the rain we're getting now, we're moving. So fuel disposal costs, I would expect them to be up. But I'll get into that in the financial report. Any more questions on the volume part? No? Okay. So the financial side of things. So recycling department is actually looking pretty good so far again yet this year. We're at 68% of revenues, which is including our annual grant. If you do prorate out that grant, we're still above 42% for revenues, which is right where we need to be. Expenses are at 28% of budget. I did want to just mention, I highlighted the miscellaneous expense and explain why that's at 190% of budget. That is including legal service fees. And some of the dumpster signage materials from that kind of came out of the town host negotiations that we've done so far this year. That stuff was not planned for. So that's why that's high. Otherwise, recycling is looking really favorable. Solid waste side of things.
How about the insurance? I'm sorry, the insurance?
The insurance, that was an annual payment. I think it was either the workers' comp or the property liability insurance.
Up that much, or?
Well, we have 2 insurance payments we make a year, and they took it out right. One of those is like an annual premium, and it was taken out right away in January.
What's up as far as the recycling? Cardboard or
everything? I didn't want to say, I don't want to jinx it, but cardboard's up right now. Paper is up to almost 100 a ton, which is, for a while last year, we were sending it at 0. Plastics are at 120, and our volumes, this is what we ship out. So it is showing we're down 2% for the year, but right now, that's not reflective of, I have 2 loads of cardboard that have been sent, a load of paper, and a load of tin cans. That stuff isn't put into that software until we receive the payment for it. So really, realistically, our volumes are up. They're just not being reflected in these volumes because they haven't been reported in our software.
Okay.
Yeah, so like I said, the recycling side's looking good. Solid waste, the solid waste department is at 43% of revenues for the year, which is right about where we should be. Expenses are at 63% of budget. I did highlight some of these expense items. So the first one in the orange being the engineering fees, almost $44,000 of those engineering expenses are associated with the feasibility and the plan of operation. So those are outlier expenses. Those are not annual operating expenses. Those are all attributed to the expansion process. The yellow number, again, I think I touched on this last month, but I just want to reiterate it again. I'm going to start over. I'm going to pull a fill. I'm going to start over. So the yellow one, the $109,000, $93,000 of that expense is an annual environmental fee that we paid the DNR. It's the big fee. We just paid it last month. So which, if we prorate that, that account is around 49% of budget, which is a little high, but our tonnage is not our volume for the solid waste side is not as low as I budgeted for. So that's why that we should have taken the tipping fees in to pay that licensing fee to the DNR. Fuel. So fuel's the other one. Fuel is at 134% of budget, at $15,072. So $9,100 of that is for the landfill equipment, the compactor, our wheel loader, our terrace. About $6,000 of that is attributed to leachate trucking as the fuel to get the leachate from the landfill to the disposal. The last 5 years, we've averaged a fuel expense on the solid waste side of over $45,000. So again, expecting half the tonnage as we've seen historically for this year's budget process. I budgeted fuel at about half or less. So with that being said, since we are only down about 20% for year-to-date volume, $45,000 average fuel cost per year, reducing that down to that 20%, we're at about 42%. So the fuel to the volume is about right on. It just wasn't budgeted right because of the volume we're seeing isn't as low as what we had expected. And again, the budget process starts in July and went through October of last year. So some of these unbudgeted expenses were things like, especially like the legal fees that had always been getting paid through the general government. And then I think in November, all of a sudden I've been seeing bills for it. So that's why that wasn't budgeted. And then the landfill expenses, I didn't highlight that one, but that's at 63%. This is including that environmental monitoring payment to MSA for last year's environmental monitoring. So that's why that one's a little elevated. Leachate, again, I know we're down 17%, but disposal, we're a little bit over 42%, which is where we should be, but that overage is about $1,400. So that. And then the equipment, building, and road, that's the compactor payment, that blue one, which I believe we should be doing a journal entry to remove that as an expense because it was a capital purchase out of treasurer's cash. So hopefully we can move that off the budget. And then the miscellaneous one, that also includes legal fees, which is why that's orange, but it's not over budget. So all in all, taking out the compactor and prorating the annual payments that have been made, we're actually not sitting as bad as this report is showing you right now. Actually, I think it was right around 40%. Any questions on that part so far? I do have some more stuff regarding the finance stuff, but I wanted to show you it first before I...
Did you touch on repair and maintenance?
Repair and maintenance is killing me on solid waste. All of that is compactor repair. We had a $6,000 loader repair that I wasn't expecting. It had all new brakes in it, and that turned into like a 1-month fiasco of back and forth. And yeah, that's the repairs and maintenance on the compactor that we just purchased, the new one.
Have you gotten it yet?
Yep.
You did.
We got it. So we've had it for about a week. there's been some bugs.
Oh, no.
Yeah, pretty disappointing, but, there's been some bugs. Miller Bradford, has been down twice to look at it. I threatened to stop the payment on their check because it was working when we were up there. But anyway, it's working today. It worked good yesterday. They're thinking it's like a minor issue because it sat for a little bit after it had been reconditioned. They're thinking it was just a wiring issue that like a mouse got something and just threw a sensor and a light. But we've been operational for a couple days and the boys are now happy it's operational. So hopefully we start seeing that in repair and maintenance and fuel, because it was supposed to be a little bit better fuel consumption machine as well. But you gotta get it working. So yeah. So on the other side of things, so long-term care enclosure, I wanted to talk a little bit about that. We, within the last couple weeks, by the end of May, I heard from Dustin Shalley with the DNR. They had not moved our long-term care enclosure funds from People's State Bank yet. After I kind of voiced my unhappiness with that was several months we had requested that, and now that's several months where we didn't earn that interest that we were hoping for. It was because of the pending passage of Act 107. In March, they changed the law for how municipal and business entities have to do long-term care enclosure. So historically, the long-term care enclosure for municipalities had to be cash funded. It had to be an escrow. It could only be invested in certain types of investments. But the main part of that is that it had to be cash funded. Businesses could get letters of credit. They could use a business worth test to prove like, hey, we're good for it in the future. So now, with the passage of Act 107, it put the government landfills on the same playing field as the business ones. So now they don't have the rules promulgated for it yet. They're supposed to be coming out November 1st. But in my conversation with Dustin Shalley, he's the main guy for this, they just took pause until that was passed, until they get the rules promulgated. Right now, our long-term care enclosure is funded in the eyes of the DNR. After November 1st, when they come up with the rules of what the municipal worth test will be, and some of the other rules associated with this, it could potentially free up the idea of having to have cash funding and having to put all this money into this account every year, which when you're looking at my budget, I have $55,000 budgeted for long-term care enclosure. That could help alleviate some of the stress from like repair and maintenance overages and some of those things. But we won't know that until they put the rules out. Dustin did indicate to me that they do not expect us to put any money into that account this year because they're still doing the rules. And after November 1st, he said it was quite possible that they would relinquish any control of all of those funds. And then the county would have, as long as the county could make that governmental worth test and certain things. So there could be some opportunity with the long-term care enclosure down the road, but we don't know that yet. But I just wanted to give you that it's looking very positive that we won't have to put any of that into long-term care enclosure this year. So again, that could free up some of this overage on repair and maintenance and fuel and things that were kind of under budgeted. That's my way of explaining it. Sorry, it's not, if it's clear as mud.
As an enterprise fund, shouldn't that money still go in there, even if the county can do it? I mean.
So what it would give us the opportunity of doing is not having it all tied up in this escrow. Because right now we've got all of this money sitting in an escrow account that we can't do anything with other than earning interest at whatever rate the interest rates are. So what it could do is free up some of the cash money for the county to utilize for other things, for like the department to maybe invest in equipment or invest in the expansion process. And then you've got 15 years to put that money back in. You'd essentially be self-loaning out of one of those two accounts. But
It'll ultimately be a policy decision of
Right.
this committee and the board really as to how they want to treat those funds.
But right now, as far as this $55,000, I should not need to put that into the long-term care enclosure. Because that's usually done at the end of the year or January, February the following year to be in compliance, and we may not need to do that. So that would free up some of the stress from the.
What's your interest income gonna be for the year?
What he was gonna move it. I put a call into him yesterday. I haven't heard back. Their interest rate right now is over 5%. So I got approval from Cassie to have him move forward with moving that money. We still want to do it because now we've got from now till November or whenever they come up with the rules to earn that interest. Because we haven't been very happy with
What's the rate at now?
Right now.
our rate. It fluctuates. So I've got some assets or some investments that are over 5. And then I have some that are around 2.35, I think is one of them. We have a couple of savings accounts that are like 0.1% at People State Bank. So yeah, we were planning on moving those investments a while ago. And then I seen the email come back March 1st from Bobby to Dustin to move those. And then he never moved them because they were waiting on all these rules. So I voiced that I wasn't happy with that. I thought, well, we asked you to move them. You should have just moved them. Like that was what we had asked for. You knew. I'm very fluid when I talk to Dustin about it. Yeah.
Understand why.
Yeah. So I voiced my frustrations with it, and he did apologize. But
Isn't there somebody else that can do it if he won't?
he is the main guy for this at the DNR, and they're very short staffed. Well, just like
They're
everywhere.
almost like at that point, they're almost like custodial funds too. Like we couldn't have just moved them.
Yeah, we have to get approval from them to do so. So,
Costing us some money.
Well, and it doesn't seem like it's a big thing to do, you know.
well, he made it sound like, oh, let me know, I can have it done in 1 week, and I haven't heard nothing back from him. So I called him yesterday. He's like, I need to know if this has been moved. I still haven't heard. So I'm hoping he's moved them and just never let me know. I could call People State Bank and find out too. I can do that this afternoon. So a little information on the long-term care enclosure pending. But that bill was passed in March 14th, and Act 107, if you want to read it.
That's okay.
And then the last page of this is vouchers. If you guys don't have anything else for me on the finances. The vouchers, there's a big, heavy, thick line between May 24th and June 14th. Everything that was on May 24th, that was all part of the new vision numbers, and everything below that is the stuff that was pending, just to break that out for you guys. But really looking at these, nothing major or out of the ordinary on recycling. The one big bill, load of tires, which still are not getting cheaper. I've complained to everybody that'll listen. I've even talked to the universal waste specialist with the DNR. Like, you guys got to try to step in and do something, because these people are going to start disposing these. You can't, whatever. But I tried. For solid waste, this 148, that's the compactor payment. The 4,800 to Sparta is April's disposal for leachate. Paints, welding, and repair, about 1,800. Service to the 19 and 23. Short Elliott Hendrickson, that is again feasibility study, plan of ops, and some general work that was done. Let's see, MSA professional landfill professionals, that is the first round of landfill sampling, Q1, and the biannual payment for 7,900. That is this year's expense. And then another payment to Short Elliott Hendrickson for 4,400, again for feasibility, plan of ops, and some general work. So those vouchers totaled $190,774.36.
Have you heard anything about Bigfoot, Kelly?
No, I actually I have not. I did text Mike during that because that was also a surprise to me. Let me see. And I was told that no, he is not planning on selling. GFL keeps offering to purchase him out. So that was the text that I got. So that's the information that I have on that.
That would make a big difference. Right.
Yes, actually, thank you, Paul. So we did hear back, SEH has been working with, the DNR. We are going to need to do some additional investigation, which we'd like to get approval to do so. But Brian, Kent, and Melanie today were unable to attend this meeting to explain the additional investigation piece of it. But so they're looking at additional monitoring wells, 2 to 3 of them out around the expansion area. And then that would require additional monitoring of those for right now. It's estimated 2 months, but it could be 2, 4, or 6 months of additional monitoring. And that all comes with additional costs. So Brian, Kent, and Melanie, I'd like to schedule a special meeting of the committee and them to come explain what that is in more detail. So that's where we're at with the feasibility study.
How much money are you talking?
That's what I was at.
The quote they gave me was about 180, and I'm gonna say 180,000 to 200,000. Because I believe I want to check on it, but we may need to do another plan or another feasibility addendum, which the DNR said that if we send them an addendum to the feasibility study, it's another review fee of $24,000. So
That's a lot of money.
So
When were you thinking they could maybe talk?
date was looking like Thursday. Thursday the 20th, potentially that afternoon. Does anybody have that?
That's after county board.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
a board meeting.
Okay. As soon as I get a time, for that, I will send that out.
Yeah, that would work. We're here anyway, so.
The earlier in the afternoon, the better though. Like, they can't be your past 5:30 that day.
Well, on my calendar, it said finance,
They could.
but I don't know if that's like an
would
old
probably be better.
finance schedule
June
meeting.
20th? Oh, yeah, that's old. Finance flip. So finance now is always the Tuesday before.
Did they just present at the county board, or is that?
I think
Not-
that would be important for all the board members to hear.
And then we could do a meeting afterwards to
Yeah.
do whatever we
Yeah, we
have
could do
to.
that.
2 birds with 1 stone.
Yeah.
Right.
Because they're.
Because, and actually, we don't have much on for county board this month, so I mean, we could
I think that
just
would
easily do that.
Well,
We can still have the committee meeting, yeah.
To keep everybody up to speed.
Yes.
For the year.
I think that's all I had for department. I did invite Greg Ackerman, or Ackerson from Apex to talk on the next agenda item.
Is that something that was asked by the host agreement too? The leachate filtration?
Yes, it was one of the earlier requests. This is me bringing this to the committee for approval to do the proof of concept. It's between 12 and 1,600 bucks. And I guess I'll have Greg, speak to this. I'm going to share his PowerPoint here. Greg, are you on with us right now?
I don't see Greg.
Yeah, I can see him on there.
Oh, yep, okay. Yes, he's there. Greg, can you hear us? Not on mute. Greg, are you able to hear us?
He said he can hear us.
Well, Greg, we can't hear you.
Right.
I guess, well, we're waiting on him to be vocal on there. The reason I'm still bringing this forward with everything else we have going on, 'cause it's not that I need more things going on, but I think this would be a good step in the county being proactive with regard to our leachate management. This $1,200 to $1,600 proof of concept, we send them 300 gallons of our leachate, and they run it through their filtration system. And then that gives them a better picture of what all our leachate contains and how they could treat it and how they would build our filtration system specific to us. Because when I approached Greg and I think Jason, originally they threw in a huge number of like $3 to $5 million, which, okay, there's a big gap between 3 to 5 million. So this would just get us a more solid number of what we would actually need. And the reason I think this is a good step for the county to be proactive in leachate management is the wastewater treatment systems we utilize currently. They're getting for more restrictions in their operations as well. Also the concerns with PFAS, this might be a solution for some of those concerns. But the big $3 to $5 million price tag is very alarming to me also. But right now, leachate is our second highest landfill expense. I have a guy on the road trucking that almost every day a week. Our disposal costs, you see, they're a little elevated, and that is not included. That's just the disposal on that finance report. That's not the fuel. That's not the guy to get it there. This would all be on site. So I guess I would just like the opportunity to investigate this further. And I don't know, Greg, are you able to get on here? Maybe I'll call him and then he can,
Yeah.
Would that work?
Yeah.
Daisy,
Greg, can you hear us?
now.
Okay, so I'm just gonna have you present via my phone. You can see your PowerPoint.
Yes, I can.
Okay,
So sorry about the technology issues. I don't know what's going on, but for some reason it's not working great for me, so I apologize.
No problem.
Okay, so the first slide just talks a little bit about just who we are, and our warp system is our landfill leachate treatment system. The next slide starts to talk a little bit about us being Apex. So we've been around since about 2012. We have who is Apex? Hang on, I'm trying to catch up on my screen here.
sorry.
No. Again, it's technology. It's my fault. So this talks about us. We've got Apex Facility Solutions and Apex Water Solutions. The next slide where it talks about Apex has been funded in 2012. Our main office in Coon Rapids, our leachate testing lab is in Brooklyn Park. So we're really a Minnesota-based company up in the cities. We have lots of experience. We've done a lot of different projects. One of the things that makes us a little bit unique is that we are a specific benefit corp recognized by the state government. And that just means that we are not purely driven by the almighty dollar. We tie their corporate profits into our employee bonus pool. We also tie their corporate profits into our foundation. The foundation dollars go half internationally to make a difference in the world and half within the communities in which we live and work, so where we do projects. So we care quite a bit about just trying to make the world a better place. I think that is important to bring up just because it speaks a little bit about our motivation of we're passionate about what we do, and that's a little bit about why we do it. The next slide is just kind of some bullets about our WARP system. So WARP stands for Wastewater Advanced Remediation Protocol. But we take leachate, we treat it on site, we pull out the pure water molecules, okay, leaving all of the other contaminants behind. So that includes PFAS, carcinogens, heavy metals, arsenic, all of that. So we leave that behind to be sequestered in the landfill. Our first system has been up and running since about 2015. It started as a little bit of a research and development project. We've had a few fits and starts, but it's largely been operating since 2015. And one of the questions we often get is, hey, as we keep putting the bad stuff into the back of the landfill, or keeping it there rather, we're never removing it, does the leachate get more concentrated? And so far, in watching all of our data, we've seen no statistically significant increases in any contaminants of concern. Now, what we believe is happening is, 30-40% of an MSW landfill is organics, which is carbon-based. So I think that as we spread that concentrate back on a working phase, that the carbon filter that is the landfill is binding up those PFAS and contaminants of concern and sequestering there. So not only do we stop the discharge of PFAS and other contaminants in the environment, we also are creating a safe place to store PFAS containing materials. Because as you are all very well aware, dental floss contains PFAS, right? All of our Gore-Tex, the clothes that we wear, Stainmaster, our carpets, our couches, Teflon, the cookware that we have, all of that stuff contains PFAS. Fast food wrappers, all of that stuff contains PFAS, and it ends up in the landfill. So now, by installing our system, we are creating a safe place to store and sequester that PFAS because we are keeping it within the landfill and not diluting or discharging anymore. It also decreases or eliminates really the dependency on other institutions, because right now, as you're well aware, you're taking your leachate, you're trucking it to a wastewater treatment plant that is owned by another governmental agency, and you are at their mercy. As long as they keep accepting it, you're okay. But as the wastewater treatment plants start to get more pressure around contaminants of concern and PFAS, the first thing they're going to do is stop taking other people's bad stuff. And we're seeing a lot more landfills get pressure from wastewater treatment plants to stop sending them contaminants of concern, including PFAS. The next slide, if you can see it, is really just a quick sheet. It's a data sheet. It's not very exciting, but this is from an independent testing lab. This is an actual client site of ours. The highlighted kind of pinkish reddish ones are the PFAS values in their leachate. And the yellow highlight is our effluent, our treated pure water discharge. And as you can see, all of a sudden it goes from numbers, hundreds to thousands of PFAS in the leachate to what our discharge is non-detect. So we've gotten rid of all of the PFAS from the water that we're discharging. The next slide just shows kind of what you guys are already doing, but a typical landfill leachate cycle. Again, I'll kind of go over this quickly because you're very familiar with it, but every landfill creates leachate. It is collected on a liner, taken to an underground storage tank, where it is then pumped into a truck that is driven across the roads to a wastewater treatment plant. The next slide shows just a very quick picture of a wastewater treatment plant. And the reality is when leachate goes into a wastewater treatment plant, the biological processes in the wastewater treatment plant do a very good job for nitrogen, a halfway okay job with phosphorus, and they do nothing for PFAS, carcinogens, arsenic, any of the other contaminants of concern. So what in reality is happening is leachate is being taken all across the Midwest, put into wastewater treatment plants where it is not being treated for PFAS, carcinogens, heavy metals, and really it's being diluted and discharged, and we're all doing that across the Midwest into the Mississippi River watershed, so they can all go downhill. People in New Orleans can pull it and drink it. So we stopped that cycle. The next slide talks about our warp leachate treatment. So again, the landfill is going to continue generating leachate. It goes in the underground storage tanks. From there, instead of pumping into a truck, we pull it into our building. We just need something to house our system. It can be containers, it can be a building, it can be whatever. It's just, we have pipes full of water, so it can't freeze. So we just need a heated space for our system. But from the underground storage tank, we pump it into the building. It goes through a pre-treatment skid and then a polishing skid, and the pure water molecules that comes out. So the water that comes out meets the national drinking water standard, and that can be discharged to an infiltration basin, into a stream, into a wetland, and anything. We work with the DNR to permit that, but it's pure water. So that's the easy part. All of the bad stuff stays behind as concentrate. The concentrate then is pumped out. We've got storage tanks to store it, but then during the day, it gets pumped into a honey wagon or something like that, and it's spread across the working face of the landfill. And that working face of the landfill then is getting a little bit of moisture from that, and is also what is sequestering the PFAS and other contaminants. So the next slide just kind of shows that that's just a jar of our effluent, of our permeate, of our clean water. We think of a nice picture. Good flowers, clean water. Then the next slide just shows a little bit, and you can see some of the system components. So kind of in the middle on the left side, there's a green skid. That's our polishing skid. That's our last step. The bottom right is a blue rack and skid, and that's our pre-treatment skid. So the leachate comes in, it goes through that bottom right blue skid, the pre-treatment skid. That cleans up the leachate enough so that it can go to the polishing skid. The polishing skid is reverse osmosis. So by the time it's through the polishing skid, we have reverse osmosis quality water, which is in essence pure water molecules. So that's kind of how it works. As you can see, it's very modular. So the racks can go higher, they can go wider. It's just the tubes that contain all of the membranes. So the system can be scaled down, it can be scaled up. It's very modular. We've just got pumps to pump the leachate, stainless steel pipes and CPVC pipes to carry it to the membranes, and then more pumps to go through the next phase and back out. The tanks up in the right are just kind of showing some of the storage tanks. We size the system so that, well, let's say it's a 4th of July weekend, it's a 4 or 5 day weekend and nobody's going to be there. Then the tanks just fill up and the system keeps operating. It's fine. After the weekend, staff comes back and they can go spread the concentrate. Everything is PLC based, so it's all computerized. We can monitor it off-site. It'll start itself up. It'll turn itself off. For example, if it's, January or August and there's not a lot of leachate production going on, as the underground storage tanks draw down, we'll watch that. And if we run out of leachate, the system will turn itself off. It'll do a clean in place protocol, put some preservative in there, and then just kind of go to sleep, waiting for that underground storage tank to fill back up again. When there's enough leachate to treat, it'll turn itself back on again, start operating until we run you out of leachate again, and then it kind of goes back to sleep again. So that's kind of the system and how it works. Like I said, everything is computerized. The one thing that we ask staff to do is, even though we've got sensors and all kinds of stuff on it, a human ears will still hear a bearing going out before we'll see it on our sensors. You will see a pinhole leak in something before we'll see it on a computer. So we just say, beginning of shift, just walk through the building. Everything look good? Yep. End of shift, walk through the building. Great. If it's a weekend, don't come in. If it's a long weekend for 4th of July, don't come in. But if somebody's there anyway, beginning of shift and end of shift, walk through the building, listen, take a look, everything's fine, move on with your day. And the only real operational impact that is just as we make that concentrate, that eventually that needs to be put into a honey wagon and spread across the working face and discharged there. And the very last slide is the little building we've got out in Canyon County. The Canyon County wanted split face blocks, so they built a very nice building. It doesn't have to be that. It can be a pole barn, it can be contained, it can be whatever. We just can't have it freeze. All right. The very last slide then is just my name and cell phone number and contact information. So as Stacy mentioned, what we've done already is we've come and we've done kind of a grab sample. So we've just grabbed some leachate, took it back to our lab, and analyzed it very briefly just to see where you fall kind of on the range of leachate from other landfills that we've seen. And you're a fairly normal leachate quality. So there's nothing alarming in that. It all looks fine to us. The next step, as Stacy mentioned, is what we want to do is we will come out to your site, we'll grab a tote of your leachate, we'll take it back to our lab in Brooklyn Park, and we'll run it through our system as a proof of concept. We won't charge you a dime for any of that. The only thing we ask is that after we run it, we will take the samples to an independent testing lab, and we ask you guys to pay those lab fees just that way. The independent testing lab sends the results directly to you. We ask that you copy us because we want to see them too, but we want you guys to get the results directly from the independent testing lab. That generally runs like up to $1,200. It really shouldn't be much more than that. But we just ask you to pay those lab, the test results, so that you get the independent testing labs. Us doing that kind of accomplishes two things. First, it gives you guys some confidence going, yeah, here's your leachate, this is the quality of water we can make. So it does a proof of concept to go, yeah, it actually works. The second thing it does is it allows us to play with your leachate a little bit so that we can then get a better idea of what our clean in place protocols need to be, how they need to be down, kind of size the system, so we can come up with a better budget number for the system. And we'll spend a little time out on site with Stacy and her staff, kind of going, okay, if you were going to build a building, where would it go? How much underground piping needs to be done? So we can put together a good budget to say, hey, if this makes sense to you, or when it makes sense to you, here's kind of what we should budget. So that's what we're here today to talk to you a little bit about, is that taking that next step.
Greg, do you see this in the future being something that every waste management place is going to have to do with the issue of PFAS?
Yeah, I think so. Right now, there's kind of three technologies for PFAS treatment for landfill leaching. One company has come out with one where they evaporate the leachate and they can remove about 90% of the PFAS. So that's awesome. That's way, way better than what's being done now. The challenge is you're not getting rid of 100% of it. So we obviously are kind of a biased source, and we kind of say, why would we still discharge any in the environment? So that one, I think, that one's getting some traction, but it's got flaws. The second technology is where they do foam fracking, which again, you take leachate, you do foam fracking, you can capture 80 to 90% of the leachate, which is way better than anything being done now. It's great, but you still go, you got 10 or 20% of your PFAS in the leachate that's still being dispersed in the environment. So again, we're a biased source. I'll be the first to admit that, but I still go, why would we discharge any? So our system, we are super proud of because we eliminate 100% of the PFAS. So to answer your question, I believe that wastewater treatment plants are going to stop taking any liquids that have PFAS, because the discharge from the wastewater treatment plants is going out into our environment. And we already have problems with drinking water, right, having PFAS in it. So wastewater treatment plants don't create PFAS. They're just a pipe. So it's either coming from an industry, right, or from landfill leachate. Well, as the DNR and the EPA start to crack down on the discharges of wastewater treatment plants, the first thing they're going to say is, Okay, industry, we're not taking your stuff anymore. You have to do point source treatment. And leachate, we're not taking any leachate anymore either. So eventually, something is going to have to be done with landfill leachate. So yes, I do believe fully that this is something like our system is going to have to be done everywhere. We just don't have a choice anymore.
And I guess I would like to speak to some of that too. So I've been in conversations with like all of the landfills that are municipally owned in the state for various topics. And I've asked about this because there's only the one system. Landfills like La Crosse County, Allegheny County, ones that are right near the wastewater treatment facility, they have direct lines from the landfill right to the wastewater treatment system. They're not having to truck it like we are. Monroe County's having to truck theirs, but they're not as far, right? So the trucking isn't a big concern for them. They don't have to, or it's real close. We're shipping ours right now, just a majority to Sparta, which is, it's the hour and a half round trip.
Fuel costs.
Yes, because the city of Viroqua does not want our leachate. They'll take it in events of emergencies, but they don't want it regularly. Sparta is our main outlet. La Crosse County, we can take it there too. However, it's more trucking. And the disposal cost is substantially less, but to get it there, it's about the same as Sparta, if not a little more. So that's another reason why this isn't as popular a thing yet, is because they don't need it. They're right there. We'll just open the valve and move on with our day, where we're still trucking. So just another.
Okay.
Yeah.
When you showed those graphs with the PFAS numbers in the leachate, and then the testing afterwards, and you listed non-detect, is that non-detect 0 parts per trillion then?
Well, I can't, I'm not supposed to say we remove 100%, and I can't say 0 because the detection level of the equipment, the testing keeps getting better and better. But right now, below about 4 parts per trillion is undetectable. So I believe that because of the physical processes of RO membranes, right? An RO membrane works kind of like a colander. It's a surface with small holes in it. And so if you said, hey, when we talk about the size of the holes in an RO membrane, we're talking about molecular weight. So you go back to the old high school chemistry, charts, and H is a 1 and a 0 is a 16. So an H2O molecule is an 18 molecular weight. So anything smaller than that size or smaller can get through the colander. PFAS molecule is a lung molecule. Even short change PFAS is big. So it's kind of like trying to drive a semi through a colander. Even though the detection limit is, we're below the detection limit, for all intents and purposes, it's kind of 0 because a semi is not going to get through a colander just through the physical properties of the size of the molecules and the size of the holes. But from a purely scientific perspective, I can't prove that it's 0 because the detection limit of the equipment that's used to test it is only good down to so far. Did that answer your question?
It did. I have another question. As far as your system controls your computer that's running this, I'm assuming that's a proprietary system?
No. So actually, really nothing in our system is proprietary. The membranes that go into the pretreatment and into the RO skid, the polishing skid, once we install it, if you guys want to buy those yourself, great. If you want to buy them through us, that's fine. If you want to change those, the membranes get changed depending upon which membrane specifically we're talking about. Some are 18 months, some are 36 months. But if you want to change those yourselves, great. If you want us to do it, great. Odds are you'll probably want us to do it just because it's really particular small little gaskets and stuff. And if you're not used to doing it, it's kind of a bugger and it takes you a long time. But that's fine. The controls are all PLC based. So Allen Bradley PLC based, that's all good. Really so there's nothing in our system that's proprietary. Kind of our secret sauce, so to speak, is in setting up the sequence of operations and how we do the clean in place protocols and stuff, because the reality is you could just take, go to Home Depot or the local hardware store and buy an RO kit that goes underneath your sink, and you can run leachate through it, and it'll work for about 60 seconds and it will clog up. And so we've just kind of got the process down to make all of this stuff work together and repeatable, so that we're getting 18 to 36 months life out of the different membranes. But nothing's proprietary. Again, it kind of speaks to our culture a little bit ago, and that's not really our style. We want to do this because it's the right thing to do, both for the environment and our future generations, right? Like this is what we need to be doing. So
I'm sorry, I have one more question.
Yeah.
So you said we did send a sample of our leachate, correct?
Yeah, well, it wasn't much.
It
Yeah,
was like a jar.
Okay.
Like worked or something. We could just grabs. We're gonna have like 16 ounces, like a pint.
Okay. And that is what they'll be doing testing on, or they already did testing on?
We did some testing on that in our lab, where we just kind of took a look at some key parameters just to see where you guys line up with other landfills. What we found is every landfill has different leachate. Some are much easier, some are really crazy, off the chart hard. You're kind of right in the bell-shaped curve. You're right down the fairway. So that's all we've done for testing, is just kind of outline where your leachate looks from a COD, BOD, that kind of perspective. Kind of the criteria that make it difficult or easy for us to test. So we've done that. That's all we've done. Now we want to come and grab 200 to 400 gallons of your leachate so we can run it through our system and do a deeper dive in the testing. The first one we didn't charge you nothing for. We did grab sample, did that. Now we won't charge you anything for this. We just ask you to pay the testing lab fees so that you guys have the independent testing lab data directly, and that'll be $1,000 to $1,300 in that range.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
And this facility that you have, what is the cost to install those?
So it depends a little bit. It depends a lot on the existing infrastructure. So the system and your gallons. So we do, if you're, how many gallons per year of leachate are you?
we averaged 2.5 million.
Yeah, so I would anticipate the system will cost around $2 to $2.5 million. Okay. Now you can buy it, or we can set up a lease, like a municipal lease, to just lease the equipment. So there's that, and then there's just the cost of the building, and that's going to be, where is it, how big is it, and where does it sit? So we do underground piping back and forth to your underground storage tanks. So that's stuff you have to figure out. In an ideal world, and this is typically what happens, is we generally, when the system is in, it costs about a penny to a penny and a half gallon to treat leachate, okay? Because we use electricity for pumping energy. That's the bulk of the cost. We use a little bit of chemical just to do our clean in place protocol. So at night, it shuts down for about 2-3 hours. We use a little bit of caustic, a little bit of acid, and then some preservatives and maybe some anti-scalant. We use a little bit of chemical just to do the clean in place protocol to refresh the membranes, and it starts back up the next day and runs again for 20 hours on a 24 kind of a thing. So we use a little bit of chemical, we use electricity, and that ends up costing about a penny to a penny and a half gallon to treat. If we add the cost of the system in and amortize that over 20 years, our total cost, like we lease all the equipment and then the electricity and everything, is generally around 8 to 9 cents a gallon all in. So if we can build the building pretty economically, and then if you just want to lease the equipment, generally we can be probably the same range of what you're spending now, or possibly cheaper, just depending on where the numbers come in. But that's kind of our goal, is to say, if we can do the right thing for what you're already spending, or maybe just a hair more, well then that's a great answer, because we can't have you suddenly have a huge budget impact, because that impacts your operations, your longevity, and everything else, right? So
Thank you.
And I guess my thought on paying for the 12 to 1600 on this proof of concept sheet was that long-term care and closure, that 55,000, it could come out of that budgeted area. So I guess that's thoughts.
That's very interesting.
I like all of that, but the closer, it's easier to make some of these decisions, the closer we get to the DNR approval or expansion.
Right.
We keep trying to keep moving forward in the right direction with that, not need to 100%. I like all of this. This summer's great. It should be happening all over. Surprising there isn't more information about it. That's so interesting to you if you're directly involved in
Yeah, I mean,
stuff.
nothing about what he said is wrong. I mean, the fact that these wastewater treatment plants will eventually stop accepting the leachate, I mean, that's going to happen because the regulations are going to continue to come down. But I think part of the reason why we asked Stacy to investigate this as well is because this was a request as far as the compost agreement goes. And at that time that we were asked to look at it, we did not know what the cost was going to be either. And so it's really up to you guys if you want to move forward with doing that proof of concept or if we want to pull. I mean, it's.
Can I just ask, Greg, what's the timeline on this? Like, if we move forward with it today, like, what is the timeline? I guess my thought was this could be part and would have to be either plan modification operations, or it could be part of the plan of operations development for the expansion. So that's why I'm asking this.
So there's a couple steps. The proof of concept, we come out and grab your leachate this month. We should have the results. We should have our testing done by kind of 4th of July. The testing labs are a little backed up, so they may take another 4 weeks or something. So by the end of, let's say by the end of July-ish, we should have all the results back and have some decent budgets. If you guys then say, hey, yeah, this makes sense, we're really interested, and we would, we put together an engineering study. It's going to take about 6 months to like fully design a system. And I'm kind of going as the fastest we could do it. So that would if you guys were completely gung-ho and everything made sense every step of the way, by December we could have it all designed. You guys would say, yeah, let's go, and we would start construction, which would take us, into a good chunk of 25 to have it up and running. Would be about fall of 25. It'd probably be about the fastest we could have it up and running. And it certainly can go slower than that, but that's kind of the speed of what it would take. The other piece is having this proof of concept, and now we would have independent testing lab data and say, yeah, here's the water quality we can make. It does make it a lot easier to sit down with the DNR to say, hey, as we want to permit this is the water quality we can make. And it's easier to have concrete discussions with them of where the permit would want to go, how we would handle it. And it's much easier to have those conversations than to have kind of hypothetical, ethereal conversations with the DNR. So this first step does even help just in that process in and of itself.
I can see this probably being a requirement down the road for all facilities, with the talk of PFAS and.
Roughly, what's the monthly lease rate on something like that? That got mentioned.
We'll lay out, hey, here's kind of what the monthly or annual, however, lease rate would be over these terms, or if you just pay for it upfront, no one getting bond. We'll lay all that out. I actually don't know that off the top of my head. Sorry.
So then to try to incorporate this, would the DNR then charge us another 24,000 to try to add this into the expansion?
No, because this would be part of the plan of operations. And every time I do a plan mod, anything, it's $1,650. Like if the next topic, that'll have to be a plan mod if we choose to implement that as current operations. So that's why I'm asking, just if we could do this, then we will know. We'll have an idea of how much it'll cost. I'm very confident that we'll be able to pay for the 1,200 or 15 or 16 that's on here through this year's budget. Because then it would give us more information to go on. It would give us a better budget. And there's wiggle room, right? Like he mentioned, we can decide what our building is. It doesn't have to be a brick Taj Mahal out there at the landfill. And me and Greg, I did show them a map of our facility, and we have area right off of our leachate tank, our above ground tank, like for the building. Like I don't think it'll be as much plumbing to get the leachate to this facility as others might have or choose to have. So I just think there is some room in there in the design, but we won't know until we do this piece.
And money can be taken from long-term care. I mean, it's not.
Right now, when I talked to Dustin Shawley, he said that he did not encourage us to put any more funds into the long-term care and closure escrow accounts because by November, they very could possibly be relinquishing them. So, and I have an email from him. He said that right now the DNR has zero concerns with our long-term care and closure.
I'm saying that's not a restricted, I mean, that.
No, you can do that. It's no issue. And I see the benefit of doing the proof of concept at this time. I would just say, as far as incorporating anything into the plan of operations or anything, that we would hold until the feasibility study is approved.
Right.
Obviously, it's an investment. But as far as the proof of concept goes, it may even assist with the DNR, and we have the funds to do it. So.
Right. Does anyone want to make a motion to? I will move ahead. Let's move ahead with the study through Apex.
All right, I have a motion by Sandy. Do I have a second? Second by Paul. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Thanks, Greg.
Thank you.
All right. Have a good day. Bye. I'm proud of myself. I remember to print that. Having to remember it later.
So this is probably a dumb question, but why would they not require wastewater treatment plants to do this instead of all the counties?
I think they don't have a specific number that they can try.
They don't have the rules yet. Mm-hmm. The rules aren't there yet.
Yeah, each state has their own regulations right now. And then as far as like drinking water standards go, the federal government just came out with new standards, and it's 4 parts per trillion, which is pretty low. Right now, Wisconsin standard is 20 parts per trillion. But what happens is the federal standards come out and then the states kind of come behind it. And so it'll take, I think, when I was in Campbell, I think they said usually about 18 months for something like that to come down. And then you get politics involved too. And that's what's been happening in the state of Wisconsin over the last few years with any PFAS regulation. But I could go down a PFAS wormhole and I will save you all that.
What is happening in town of Campbell? Are they, as far as, they're still just drinking
There's
water?
Still, yeah. The whole island is still under health advisory through DHS. And they did a test well to go into the Mount Simon Aquifer, which is like 250 feet deep, which for the island is significant because most of the wells are somewhere in that 60 to 65 foot range for the individual wells. The county just gave them $500,000 to install 3 new monitoring wells at different depths to continue PFAS testing, and they're still investigating what a water system would look like for the whole town. At least that's what I've read.
All right. On to
Sorry.
C, proposal for alternative daily cover system.
Okay, so I also have James Manchester on today from LSC to talk about that daily cover system. James, can you hear me?
I can. Good morning. Or good afternoon. Sorry.
Morning. I can go show you guys. So here is a video of my trip to Allegheny County. This is them applying this daily cover system. I guess I should share it first. I don't have my two screens. Like, I just don't know how to operate a computer. It's horrible. Okay, here's the video. Sorry, it's pretty slow on there, but that's at the Allegheny County landfill. It's massive compared to ours, but they implement this daily. It was quite the setup. I had to send a bunch of emails to myself with pictures for you guys. So here is the material again, sharing. James, you want to go through your stuff?
Sure. I can share my screen, or would that work with you guys?
Yeah, you should be able to. I'll stop sharing. That's just the consistency and stuff, but.
I also have my my national sales director is on the phone, India Terrera. He's currently driving, but he's on there to help kind of answer any questions that you may have as well, or kind of add any input into the presentation and talking about what we do. Let me share my screen. You know, when you guys when you're able to see it.
No, that's a computer. Okay.
Are you able to see my screen?
Can you make it bigger at all?
Yeah, so before you start, James, this is Andy
Sure.
with LSC Environmental. So our company has been producing Posi Shell alternate daily cover for about 25 years now. Our company started alternate daily cover. We're a company from New York. So we have this Posi Shell product, and it's basically made of, it's bentonite clay that we mine out of Wyoming. We add polyester fibers to it and some coloring. So that's our daily cover product. Also, that's our Posi Shell product. And also to Posi Shell, we can add on Portland cement. And Portland cement is our intermediate cover product that performs, you can spray it on and it creates a stucco-like coating on the soil surface or trash surface. So that's more of an intermediate cover product. And so our company, we sell products all over the world. We sell our Posi Shell for the last 25 years. And we have a lot of landfills in Wisconsin area and in the upper Midwest that use our product. So it's not anything new. And so James is going to present to you kind of a cost benefit analysis. But, the thing I want you guys to take away from this is that it's just not just the operational savings, it's the airspace savings. And you guys know how expensive it is to build a cell, how expensive it is to build a new landfill. So the whole idea, or the main idea behind our product, is to save your agency airspace. And that's what we're going to discuss here today. Go ahead, James.
Sure. So I approached Stacy probably last year on just a cold call. I'm here. Sure, she and I had a conversation, and in January, in a very, very, very cold day in January, she met us up at Allegheny, and Allegheny's been one of our top customers, leading customers with Posi Shell for many years. They had purchased a new machine, and it was an ideal situation for Stacy to come to see actually the machine, to see the product in action. And from there, we always ask the landfills to do a cost benefit analysis. It's the best way of explaining and showing you guys the numbers and what we can do in the airspace savings, as Andy referred to. and on the operational side. So we have a questionnaire. I sent it to Stacy. These are all numbers that came from your landfill that we put into this Excel spreadsheet. And just to kind of show you guys, this is just the input page in which we asked, the questions are very simple. How many tons a day are you guys getting? Your, what your operation to spread soil is, what your operation to move the soil is, current life of your cell and whatnot. So we've taken all this and I've sent this to Stacy where she can input this so she can go back and change, and it will reflect in the pages that I will show you the numbers, what it can do for you guys. All of the formulas are in this presentation. We do everything to keep everything above boards. We're not hiding. We just want to make sure that everything is explained and to show you what our product can do. Let's see. Why Posi Shell? Posi Shell can be used for daily cover. As Andy explained, can be used for intermediate cover with the combination of Portland cement. For example, if there's an area on her current working face that she doesn't want to pile the 6 inches of dirt, she can spray this material. It's strong enough for it to keep everything in place. Your inspector would be happy with that, and then she can come back to it at a later time. It can be used for erosion control. You can use, again, the Posi Shell with the Portland cement to do slope stabilization. The beauty of this is if she has any slopes, instead of the rainwater penetrating and creating more leachate, what you're going to have is kind of, as Andy said, like a hard cover or a stucco, which you could have clean stormwater come off. So you're not generating more leachate, because I overheard the conversation prior, and to help everything to be smooth. And also can be used for, lining swale or ditch linings and whatnot. To kind of give you guys a little bit more of a background, LSE, as Andy said, we're out of upstate New York. It stands for Landfill Service Corporation. That was our bread and butter. From there, we have expanded to other things into some different markets. We have products to help with odor control. We also do hydromulch and erosion control products as well. Everything that actually fits into the area of a landfill. So if there's anything else, we can be a multi-purpose company and not necessarily just daily cover. If she has erosion control problems or anything like that, that is also a concern with landfills and can be questioned by your inspectors. We can help with that in regards. Any questions so far or anything?
Oh.
Okay.
Are you able to zoom in on your spreadsheet a little bit? We're just trying to view it through a share screen and it's small.
See what I can do. I don't know if I can make this Excel format any bigger than what it currently is, but I'll resend this to you, Stacy, so you have it, so you can share and email it to the council members here, so you guys can see it firsthand. What you're currently doing, you have roughly 13,000 square feet of a working face, which Stacy and I have had conversations after this has been done, and she's working to kind of close that working face up, which is awesome. You're covering 5 days a week. You're using about 150 cubic yards of soil and about 1 hour of labor and equipment per hour. Since you guys you're purchasing soil, some landfills have to go and dig soil, so that adds to the overall cost of what their daily use is on the operational side. You guys are inputting soil, but that also does cost you guys money. The cost of input, she said, roughly about $30,000 a year. So I don't know if that's something you guys have contracted for years. If not, then you could run into a situation where inputting soil could cost you more in the long run, or which is going to increase your overall costs as well. Equipment used for spreading, you're just using one loader or one loader. Current operation for Posi Shell, you would be using about 1,300 gallons. We have a recommended application rate of about 10 feet per gallon, which is meaning just basically how much material you guys are going to be spraying or using at the end of the day in the working phase. We do manufacture equipment, which I'll get into a little bit further down the road. It would take one PSA 1000, which is basically a hydroseeder made for landfills. And you would take that and fill it with water, or you could use some of your leachate water as well to mix with this as a way of getting rid of it, and just a loader to be able to pull the applicator around. Information comparison. We've taken all the numbers that she's provided. You get labor, soil input, maintenance, fuel, etc. Right now, given that you guys do the soil import, it does give you guys some savings on the operational side. But even though you're doing that, we still would be able to save you on the operational side about $14,000 a year, roughly, or $13,500. With the increased revenue, and this is to the point where Andy was speaking, that we really help landfills. So we would help liberate about 58,000 cubic yards of soil every year. What the standard is at the end of the day, if you're not familiar, the working face, where your garbage is dumped, you have to cover the working face every single day. That's just a law in all 50 states. It's supposed to be done by about 6 inches of soil. That means it helps from, having wind blowing it around. It helps with odor. It helps with from animals picking through, etc., and things of that nature. But every time you do that, you fill your current cell up. And as you guys know, building a new cell is probably into the millions of dollars, which is an expense the county would have to pay. We're going to stop you guys from building a new cell? No, but we are going to help you really utilize your current cell so you're not having to build new cells as frequently as you would. You're currently about 1.5 years away, according to the information. We can add an additional 2.7 years to that current cell by using our posi shell material, because you're not using as much airspace with our material as opposed to using soil. So you're going to get about 4.2 years roughly with your current cell. And with the extension of that, you're looking at a revenue of about $3.1 million. And basically what that is taking the tonnage per day and multiplying that by your tipping fee. And that's where you get that number. So if you kind of go down the same path you're going now with the soil, you're looking at about 1.5 years. So with that, we're helping you extend it and helping you increase your revenue before you have to go to build a new cell. Any questions on that? Does that all kind of make sense for everybody?
Yes.
Okay. The equipment detail, this is our applicator, and we base this off of your working face. Given the size of what the working face is, larger working faces, for example, Allegheny, which is a much bigger landfill, uses a 2,000 gallon to cover their working face. We sell 3,000 gallon units for even larger landfills. She's working to close some of her working face. So at the time, based off of what the number she provided, this is the piece of equipment that would be used. We manufacture this out of upstate New York, out of our headquarters. It's designed to go onto the landfill. We build them rugged. We give them higher clearance. We have solid rubber tires to be able to go over the top of the working face. You're not continuously working into flat tires and whatnot. So, but given that she's looking, as I said, to close up some of her working faces, the piece of equipment right here would be smaller. She's looking at something that's around a 550 or a 700 gallon unit, which would also be less in cost. The 700 is roughly about $60,000, as opposed to the total here for this piece of equipment of $115,000. The material is $38.50 a bag. That's FOB. You're looking in, this is done shipping in January. You're looking at about 4 trucks a year, but I would be willing to bet that number will go down. Most landfills do not follow our recommended application rate, which is fine. It is all based off of what your inspection is. Most people, instead of the 10 feet gallon, would probably stretch it out much further, and that would use less material, and you would see that overall costs go down. The net savings, as they said, with the additional years you get it, so about 4.2 million. You subtract the equipment purchase, you subtract the material purchase over that 4.2 years, you're looking at a total net savings at $2.3 million. Pretty much that's it. Along with everything else in here, these are the formulas that go along with the Excel spreadsheet to show you how we came up with our numbers. Stacy has a copy of this. She's able to go ahead and adjust the inputs page here to maybe new numbers that are more fresh right now or current with the landfill, and it will reflect in the Excel spreadsheet to show you guys the overall savings that you would see in airspace, to show you guys the overall savings you would see in operational costs. As I said, we currently sell right now to Allegheny County. They've been customers for years. We sell to Adams County, which is probably more of a landfill that's on the same size that you guys use now. We also sell to Dane County, which is one of the bigger landfills right now in Wisconsin. They've been very, 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 very pleased with what we do. I don't know, Stacy, I can't remember if you guys were using latex paint or you're collecting latex paint at all.
We just started collecting it this year.
Okay. With that, you can take the latex paint. You can, instead of having to get rid of that, which would be a fee for you guys to do, you can add this into the material as well, and it will help you reduce the amount of material you use. Creates a fantastic cover, and it's just another way of you guys generating revenue by taking it in and not having to ship it out to get rid of the material. Andy, anything else you want to add to this?
No, just with the latex paint, we just require, it to be filtered. But we have some landfills in the country that actually pay for their daily cover because they bring in so much latex paint and they have to pay so much X amount of dollars to dispose of the latex paint. By adding the latex paint to the posi shell, it hardens and it passes the paint, the coffee filter test, if you will, as it not being a liquid when you spray it onto the landfill. So very good way to get rid of your latex. With the $2.3 million savings that James talked about, that could probably help pay for the part or half of the next cell you're going to build. So, keep that in mind. It's all about airspace savings. And if you think of the overall life of your landfill, not just the current cell, our product's going to save you millions and millions of dollars into the future. And like James says, we have a lot of landfills in Wisconsin that use the product, a lot of landfills in the United States that use our product. And we have other products, we have hydromulch products that can help you with revegetation on the landfill. We just have all these different products that can be sprayed out of the same applicator that James was talking about to help you with other issues as well. So I just want to say thank you very much. And back to you, James.
Sure. Yeah, same. If does anybody have any questions at all on this process? It's a very simple process. It's just mixed with water, sprayed out at the end of the day, and it won't add any additional time or anything like that to your current process. Actually, it might actually shorten it up a little bit. The applicator can be used as we said in multiple facets, and instead of if you're doing any hydro seeding or anything like that, you can do it on your own. You'll have the equipment now. It can be used we have landfills that actually use it as a very big pressure washer to help clean the equipment on the tracks and everything like that. So it's multifaceted. As Andy said, we do sell this worldwide. We are known in this market very well. Posi Shell is probably the premier spray that can be used on this. So, and I do think that we gain landfills every year. I think that we had something along the lines of 60 new landfills last year because of using this and the money that we can save on both the operational side and the airspace side, in a sense, creating more revenue for the landfill. Any questions on the process of the product or anything like that, or the cost benefit analysis?
Not on the process. You said you offered something for odor also?
We do. The Posi Shell itself will help reduce the odors, but if you do have some kind of extraordinary odor, we have a product called Odor Shell, which can just be mixed in with the Posi Shell and sprayed out onto the working face, and that will help. They'll help mitigate most of the smell that you're getting. Are we going to be a solve-all? No, I can't say that it's going to be 100%, but we do use it. We do get into the remediation space where you're dealing with contaminated soils and whatnot, and that's one of our bigger sellers. I actually have a project right now down in Nebraska where they're using this formula right here with our odor shell and the posi shell onto a stockpile of off-spec corn that was used at a ethanol plant that would just, as soon as you walk onto the property, before it would just knock your socks off. And now that we've covered it up because there was a small town next to it that it's in the news. It's a big thing in this area in Nebraska, but we've used the odor share to help mitigate this odor.
Thanks.
Yep.
Do you guys have any more questions for them as far as the product or the process at all on the equipment side of things?
No, the equipment was 110.
That was for 1,000-gallon unit. I'm looking at, because where we're at with the landfill right now, pull top's open, right? So the square footage of open area that we're operating in should be less. It should be a lot less. So we're working on closing that. So I don't believe we need a 1,000-gallon machine. They do have a 700-gallon, a 500-gallon machine to do the same thing, which would then be less bags per day. It would kind of bring some of the operational costs of it down, but it's still the same. It would still be the airspace savings.
And with latex paint, you said that hardens, so there's no possibility of contamination getting into leachate than the liquid at all.
Correct. Yes, absolutely. Yep.
Okay.
They're using that. That's just a way of getting rid of it without having to send it out to, and pay for that process. So you just mix it in. Once it hardens at the end of the day, it kind of creates basically a crust over the working face. So that helps to eliminate the odors, and it keeps everything down that follows the regulations of what the state would require you to cover at the end of the day. So you're replacing the soil that you're using with the posi shell. And the posi shell, instead of that 6 inches that's required, you're looking at 1/4 of an inch, maybe, if not less, of putting it on there. So then that's what helps with the airspace savings right there. So you're allowed to put more garbage, create more revenue into your current cell, and with the compaction of basically piling more garbage in there without filling it up.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Anyone else have any more questions for James? Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
So as far as the equipment right now, the equipment that we've got the wheel loader, we've got the Terex. They're both fitted to operate in the landfill. However, neither one of them have a hitch, the ability to hook up the 1,000-gallon machine, drag it around the landfill. That also then creates a 2-person job. Okay. So I'm looking at the 500 or the 700-gallon because those are on a skid. So then it would be a machine with forks. Right now, our Hyundai loader, wheel loader, does not have quick attach. It just has a 4-yard bucket. I talked to another sales rep about from Miller Bradford. He looked at it and shot me a number of like 50 to 60,000 to get that loader plumbed for quick attach and make it a multi-use tool. I guess I would like some additional time to investigate equipment options, because what I'm looking at, and we'll contact several salespeople to do, is get a trade-in price on our wheel loader, our Terex, get one machine with quick attach for the different uses. And then we have one machine to repair and maintenance instead of the 2 I currently have. It's now a multi-purpose tool. Maybe we could get something a little newer, since again, we just stuck a $40,000 tranny into that Hyundai last year. I just had a $5,500 repair bill on it for brakes. So I want to get some numbers on that stuff just to make sure we're making the right equipment decision. The posi shell thing, I'm sold on the product. It's just how we're going to apply it to the landfill. I did look at other hydroseeders as well. And in some conversations with James, he said it's a hydroseeder. So the reason I do like the LSC unit is because it does have a clean water reservoir tank on it, which up in the landfill, it's a very dusty, dirty, rotten environment for equipment, and not getting equipment clean has caused us historically a lot of repair and maintenance problems also. So I like their unit because of that, but there may be cheaper alternatives for the machine part as well. So that's the presentation. I guess I'm not really asking on an action right now until I bring you guys some equipment and more equipment numbers. I guess maybe seeking out bids for a different loader and getting trade-in on our 2. I don't know if I need approval to do that or whatever the case may be for that part of things, but.
Well, I guess this would kind of be a twofold solution with the town host agreement.
Right.
And also if we can extend the life of the landfill, if is what he's saying is correct, but it's just the cost that's involved. So if you want to do some more research and bring that next month or.
Yeah, I should be able to get it by the July meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, and like the other item, this was also to inform the committee about what a potential cost would be as a negotiation for the town host agreement.
Right.
Having a more solidified number, I think, would be good.
And this would be worst case cost assumptions because they're going off of a very big working base. I've talked to Adams County, the guys at Outagamie County, our working base is considerably big considering what they're using and then what we're taking in. So getting that shrunk is just for operational purposes, fuel consumption on the compactor, and that stuff. So we're really working on that from when I gave him those numbers.
And do the other counties, and speaking with them, do they feel they've extended the life of their landfill?
Adams County had nothing but glowing things to say. Right now, I talked to their operations manager. Their director position's kind of in flux right now. The staff at Outagamie County, I actually talked to all their staff that apply it. Their director, they really like it. They do feel it's saving airspace because in theory, when you apply 6 inches of daily cover, you're supposed to recover 80%. It's not actual. The garbage is not like a nice smooth playing surface. It's so jagged that you don't recover that sand and it goes somewhere and it's consuming airspace. I was trying to playing on my email, I was trying to find a graphic that LSC sent me that kind of shows, and it makes all the sense that, oh, there's this big pocket of sand here because you covered there and then there's garbage on top of it. It makes all the sense. Adams County is very convinced that it is saving them airspace, and it's a better option than sand for covering for things like odor, for things like litter, because the one video, which it's hard to see because I'm trying to show it to you from my email. When I visited Outagamie County, we pulled up in a truck and a Harder's truck was dumping and bags were coming at us like the Star Wars, because they're up in a pretty decent elevation now too. And it was windy and it was cold that day. They sprayed that posi shell and it locked everything up. It just glued it right down and nothing was moving because you could see the bags blowing and stuff coming up out of the landfill. And that was what sold me on it. Then, you add in the airspace savings, but that was what sold me because it's less time, less staffing for litter, and trying to keep this stuff in is a huge problem. It is, especially when we're getting up in an elevation like we're currently at. And then you add in the airspace savings. So I'll work on getting some equipment numbers because I think that's the big piece right now. I wanted James and them to present you their studies.
Yeah, thank you. As far as the town host agreement, we were going to have a special meeting, weren't we?
Yes. So we had tasked Stacy with getting numbers for the prairie planting and the alternative daily cover system, which we can't. So once we had a better idea of what those costs would be, and I think having the proof of concept piece to it too would help inform our next negotiation with them. So we wanted to get those pieces ironed out before we scheduled. But yes, our intention is then to have another meeting, which maybe we should wait until after June county board to do that, which with schedules we're going to have to really anyways. But if we want to incorporate that into July's meeting, we could. Just depends on what the agenda looks like. I know that gets a little long. But we've done that in the past. I think our intention when we discussed it before was to have a separate meeting just for that. If anyone remembers, I don't remember specifically, but I think we talked about doing a separate meeting.
Yeah.
Stacy, for the ground cover you use now, what is that estimated for a year cost?
It's about 30,000. So right now we excavate the sand on site. So all of that additional property that the county owns around that landfill and the ideas of selling a lot of that off to pay off stuff, we use a lot of that property to borrow materials. So to the southwest of the landfill, there is a sand borrow site, which we've used for years, and that's our current site. A few years ago, I ran into an issue where they couldn't find sand in that area. So I had to have it trucked in from Reedstown. I think I actually got a pretty good deal on it, but it was like $6 a yard. So if our current site runs out of sand, we're going to have issues coming up with that. And then that's going to drive up that $30,000 a year cost. Because right now that's me paying an excavator and trucks to just haul it up and pile it for me up closer to the landfill. Yeah, and we stockpile it off the landfill, so the loader has to drive down around the landfill, scoop it, and go back up and dump it on the landfill. So that's added time and stuff. They do that during downtime between loads right now.
And he said 115,000 roughly for that 1,000 gallon. What's the 500 gallon? Do you know roughly?
Yes. So the 700 gallon machine was 56,675 and the 550 gallon machine was 49,325.
And you think the 500 is big enough to do what you need?
I believe it is, yes, because our working phase, like I said, is really low. It's wide open right now because we're up on top, and we need to shrink that per just operational costs per the DNR.
Okay. And with the next phase and the expansion, you can limit your space. I mean, your active working space to that 500 gallon will still work.
And realistically, do you think you could get 4 years using this cover?
I think that might be a little sounds really great. I think that's a lot, but I've never worked with this stuff. I've just seen it in the application. I do think there would be significant airspace savings. To that degree, I don't know that it's going to double the life of our current cell.
And even if you used leachate for the liquid for that, it's not going to save much as far as what your filtration is. I mean, the numbers don't really add up to being a whole lot that way.
As far as utilizing the leachate, they say you can. I mentioned, because I've already talked to our DNR guy about this, just trying to get their input, because I didn't want to go chasing something the DNR is going to shut down, because this is something they'd have to approve. They're not a fan of using leachate because they're worried about the overspray of it, because this machine's and they don't want it drifting out of the footprint. That was another thing I was looking at, is having a multi-sprayer like they use in the crop fields that just 10 sprayed straight down to the ground. Still kind of trying to find out about that too, if we can set it high enough but not having it spraying all over like a fire hose. So the DNR was not a fan of using leachate. I don't know that we'll get approval to use that. We do have on-site water that we can use if they will not allow us to use the leachate. If we could use the leachate, I would assume that would be additional savings in leachate too, because you spray it out on the top. It dries to a crust that should evaporate some of that water content. But
well, plus you're going to have water runoff instead of having all that absorption.
yes, I love the idea that this is a multi-purpose thing. They've got the the daily cover system, they have the intermediate cover system. Erosion control, again, we're up at an elevation where everything's a 4-to-1 slope. So when we get the big rains, we go around the landfill to check the slopes to make sure they're not eroding, because it erodes down to the garbage, and that's no. So I like that they have those options included. It's, again, a more efficient, less one-trick pony thing, because I feel like this department's kind of just bought this for just this, and I'd like to try to get some stuff where it's more efficient. And
It could use a leachate. It would put a little dent in the gallons. Yeah, 2,500 gallons minimum a week. And if it dried.
Oh, right, but I mean, when you look at 2.5 million,
Yes.
it doesn't, as far as, I was thinking of reducing the cost of the filtration system, and it really isn't gonna do much for that.
So the next board meeting, we are planning on them speaking. to
Assuming
us then.
Brian and Melanie are
I will
available.
reach out to him after this meeting. I got that Thursday would work for both of them.
Okay.
And you said that.
I don't know that they'll be able to attend in person. Brian might, but Melanie is out of the Twin Cities, so I don't know that she'll be able to appear in person, but she could be on via Teams.
And you said Marcel, the additional 200,000? Is that what you're looking at? Possibly?
For the additional monitoring devices and the additional monitoring, and then the engineering work to put it together to give it back to the DNR.
But how much more of this can your budget take? I mean, you're already behind, I mean, as far as,
Well, right now my operating budget has the cost of this stuff as part of it. Like the feasibility study to date has been paid for through the department.
right,
The plan of operation line of credit, I think that I was approved. I haven't touched that yet. Yeah. That's,
And then the loan payment at the end of the,
well, if I don't have a loan, if I haven't taken the loan, I don't need the pay. I don't have to pay the payment. So,
but
that's also part of the budget is the loan payment for a loan that hasn't been taken yet. So that's,
another question, this proposal for land, how do we handle that? I know we can't, it's closed.
I think it was asked
How
and
do we
answered.
relay that back to her? Because she
Yeah, we can.
said Lauren has not.
But you'd have to open up to
Make
everybody,
contact.
you can't just do it for her. That's
Exactly.
not, we can't do it that way.
Exactly.
And it was brought up.
Yeah, if you wanted to put something on the agenda, as far as a discussion, we certainly could, if
she's
she's asking, if not for the whole parcel, if we want to investigate, splitting off part of that parcel or something like that, we certainly could put that on an agenda for discussion.
Well, it might not be a bad idea, only because I know she contacted me and then I said she had to talk to Lauren. And then I don't know, I know Lauren said he.
This is
talked to her,
the
sent her an email.
first I had heard as far as any alternatives. Like from my understanding up until today was we rejected the bid and she wanted a dialogue or a counteroffer, which is not something we would do.
Right.
That's not how the bid process works.
And I think Lauren did get back to her in email
He did.
regarding that.
Yes, I was copied on that.
Yeah.
But if we're looking at, something different, parsing off of a piece of that or, having further discussions, and Lauren's open to putting that on an agenda, we certainly could.
Just gotta be careful, it's open up to everybody, then, not just for her, and that's not.
Yeah, even if we did decide, that we were going to split it off, we would go through the same process. We would put it out for bid.
and then would I have to pay for another?
Yeah, and in fact, we would have to record it if we were going to do that as a separate parcel. I mean, there's a lot of work that would go into it.
An extra cost
For it.
Yeah.
for it that we've already kind of
Yeah.
footed some of the bill on.
I just want to try to keep it at peace if we can with her, but not sure how to go about that.
Yeah, we can talk to Lauren about getting that on a future agenda.
Okay. Wasn't there talk too that Phil had mentioned, someone approached him about solar panels?
I would love to look into that.
We're actually going to have a presentation, it sounds like, at the July general government meeting.
Was
Can-
anything looked at for the landfill?
That got brought up, but I don't know, if, and that would be a good question for when they do that presentation.
Where were you talking about?
County Farm.
The county.
Because they wanted a bigger area. I mean, it was what Phil was talking about.
Yeah.
It was a larger area
Yeah,
than
the
what the
larger they go,
landfill.
the better. But I think if I remember correctly, they wanted to be near a transformer. And that's why I'm pretty positive that's what got brought up, because someone had asked about the landfill and then someone had said they wanted to be near a transformer, and Phil had confirmed that, but we can certainly ask when they do the presentation on July 3rd.
Okay.
Well, can solar go on like a closed portion of the landfill?
I don't know that it would go on the landfill, but we've got 2 fields, right, like one right out front, one out back, that we talked about the prairie planting. Our building gets a lot of direct sunlight.
Right.
So I always thought like, oh, maybe having them look at doing the building, putting them on the building, maybe that'd help reduce the electric costs for the building, or out in that front field there, or the back field would probably get a little more sun. But that was just one of my dreams.
I just don't know if it'd be big enough for what they were looking at, but I mean, for the farm, not for solar otherwise.
Yeah. Because we did, oh my goodness, this was probably back in 2016, 17. We had the E3 coalition come out to the landfill, and we still were using like the old light fixtures, and they switched our entire building to LED, and our light bill about dropped in half out there. It was quite incredible. So that's why I always thought, oh, well, maybe if we just put some solar panels on the building and look into something like that too, maybe it'd help reduce operational costs, not like put out a whole solar field or anything crazy. But
well, if there's grants and stuff available for that, look into it.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing.
Does anyone have any more things to discuss? No? It shows next meeting July 8th, but I think we're sticking with Tuesday, right? That would be the 9th. I think it was just a blip error. Yes, just a blip. So July 9th at 9:30.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Okay. With that, I ask for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Okay. Do I have a second?
A second.
All right. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right. Thanks, everybody.